Nicobobinus had never been one to follow the crowd. From a young age, he had been fascinated with the mysteries of the world, particularly the strange and unexplained. Growing up in a small village by the sea, he had always felt the pull of adventure, a desire to step beyond the mundane life that most of the people around him led. While his friends were content with their everyday routines, farming, fishing, and chatting by the village fireside, Nicobobinus spent his days in books, studying maps, and daydreaming of distant lands. One afternoon, while walking along the cliffs above the village, Nicobobinus came across an old, weathered map half buried in the sand. The map was unlike anything he had seen before. It was drawn with precision, but the ink was faded, and there were strange symbols that made no sense to him. One part of the map stood out, a large X near the edge of an uncharted island, far out in the sea. It was a place that had never been mentioned in any of the village records, a place that seemed to call out to him. The possibility of discovering something new, something no one else had ever seen, ignited a fire in Nicobobinus's heart. He knew, without a doubt, that he had to follow this map. He set about preparing for the journey. The village had no ship capable of reaching such a distant island, but Nicobobinus wasn't one to let obstacles stand in his way. He sold most of his belongings, everything except for a few essentials, and bought passage aboard a small merchant ship heading for a nearby port. The captain was a gruff, weathered man who didn't ask many questions, and Nicobobinus found comfort in the anonymity of the journey. His companions were mostly fishermen and traders, and he spent the days in quiet contemplation, studying the map, wondering what lay ahead. Days turned into weeks as the ship sailed further and further away from the familiar shores of home. The ocean stretched out endlessly in every direction, and Nicobobinus could feel the excitement growing in him with each passing mile. He spent his nights staring up at the stars, trying to pinpoint his location. But the stars were different here, unfamiliar and vast. The further they traveled, the less he felt connected to the world he had known. The sea was both a boundary and a bridge, pulling him toward something he could not yet understand. One morning, as the sun rose over a calm sea, the ship's lookout spotted land in the distance. Nicobobinus's heart skipped a beat. This was it, the island from the map. The crew gathered at the bow, eyes straining to see the rocky outcrop that was rapidly approaching. The island was small, surrounded by jagged rocks and a dense fog that seemed to cling to its shore like a veil. As they drew closer, the captain called for the anchor to be dropped. "It's too dangerous to get any closer," he said, his voice low and cautious. "We'll wait here." Nicobobinus didn't hesitate. He grabbed his bag, slung it over his shoulder, and walked to the edge of the ship. "I'm going ashore," he declared. The crew looked at him with a mix of disbelief and curiosity, but no one tried to stop him. The captain merely shook his head, muttering something under his breath about fools and treasure hunters. The boat ride to shore was treacherous. The fog rolled in thick, and the waves crashed against the small boat with frightening force. But Nicobobinus didn't flinch. He was driven by something beyond fear, something that pushed him to take risks. As he landed on the rocky shore, the weight of the moment hit him. He was standing on uncharted land, a place no one had ever mapped or explored. There was no turning back now. The island itself was desolate. The trees were twisted and sparse, the ground uneven, and the air thick with the scent of salt and decay. Nicobobinus made his way inland, following the faint trail that seemed to lead him toward the center of the island. As he ventured deeper into the forest, the fog grew denser, and the sounds of the outside world seemed to disappear, replaced by an eerie silence. There was no wildlife here, no birds, no animals, just the rustling of the leaves and the occasional crack of a branch underfoot. Hours passed, and Nicobobinus began to feel a sense of unease creeping into his chest. The map had led him this far, but now, as he stood at the edge of a darkened grove, he wondered if he had made a mistake. But before he could turn back, he noticed something on the ground. A faint marking, a symbol carved into the bark of a tree. It matched one of the strange symbols from the map. He moved closer, examining the markings. They were old, faded by time, but still unmistakable. The symbol was a clue, a piece of the puzzle. With renewed determination, Nicobobinus pushed forward. The path grew narrower, more difficult to navigate, but he didn't stop. He had come this far, and there was no turning back. The air grew colder as he moved deeper into the island, and the trees seemed to grow taller, their twisted branches reaching toward the sky like gnarled fingers. Finally, after what felt like hours, he came to a clearing. In the center of the clearing stood an ancient stone structure, an archway covered in moss and ivy. It looked like a forgotten doorway, an entrance to something hidden. Nicobobinus approached cautiously, his heart racing. He ran his fingers over the cool stone, tracing the carvings etched into its surface. There was something familiar about it, something that seemed to resonate with him on a deeper level. As his fingers brushed the archway, a strange hum filled the air. The ground beneath him trembled slightly, and the archway began to glow, faint lines of light running along its surface. He stepped back, startled, but curiosity pushed him forward again. The hum grew louder, more insistent, and the air around him seemed to vibrate. He couldn't explain it, but he knew that whatever lay beyond this archway was what he had been seeking all along. Without thinking, he stepped through the arch. The world shifted. For a moment, Nicobobinus was disoriented, as if he had crossed into another realm entirely. The ground beneath his feet felt different, softer, as though he were walking on clouds. The sky above him was a strange shade of purple, and the trees around him were no longer twisted and gnarled. They were tall, majestic, and shimmering with an ethereal light. It was a world unlike anything he had ever seen before, a place of beauty and mystery. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself, when he heard a voice behind him. "You've come at last." Nicobobinus spun around, his heart skipping a beat. Standing before him was a figure cloaked in shimmering robes, their face hidden in shadow. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice shaky but filled with urgency. "I am the keeper of this place," the figure replied, their voice calm and soothing. "And you, Nicobobinus, have finally come to claim what was always meant for you." Nicobobinus's mind raced. "What do you mean? What is this place?" The figure smiled, a gesture that seemed both warm and foreboding. "This is the realm of forgotten dreams, of the past that never truly died. You are here because you were chosen. The map you found, the island you came to, it was all part of the plan. The treasure you seek is not gold or jewels, but something much more precious,